We're with Jamie Jacks. She is the board attorney for the Cleveland School District. Jamie, thanks for being with us today.
You're very welcome.
As you know, recently a federal judge ruled that the Cleveland School District must desegregate. What is the board's official position on this ruling?
Well, the board is appealing the ruling. The board's official position is and has been that it believes it's doing everything that it was supposed to do under the previous consent orders that the district has been under since 1969, 1970 was the last major order. So the board's position has been that we think we've done really everything we can do. We think we have an integrated school district. We're proud of the level of integration that we have, and we would urge anyone who thinks otherwise to look around at the different districts surrounding us and see that there's absolutely no integration going on at those other districts. We have a district where you can choose where you want to go to school, and in 2016 the board believes that that's a constitutional setup for a school district, for any school district, not just ours.
What was the judge's ruling, and is it realistic?
Well, the judge's ruling was that we should have one high school at the Cleveland High Margaret Green campus and one junior high school at the Eastside High campus. From a structural, financial, if you look at it from the surface sort of analysis, yes, the judge's ruling is feasible in terms of time and money. What the district has always been wary of is that we've had this system of choice for the last 40 plus years. It's worked well for our district in terms of maintaining diversity. So where perhaps it doesn't look realistic to the district is when you start forcing people to make school choices that they didn't necessarily want to make. The statistics tell us, history tells us that you will lose your population. Not just a white population, but all over population. And you only have to look to districts in Clarksdale and Greenville and Greenwood to see the results of what are called mandatory reassignment plans. So while the judge's plan, and I'll say too, that was the Department of Justice's plan that she adopted, she was faced with two competing plans, one from the Department of Justice and actually two from the Cleveland School District. We put forth a Plan A and a Plan B, and she rejected both of our plans and went with the Department of Justice's plan.
What is the appeal based on? Can you put it in layman's terms?
Sure. The appeal will be based on the fact that open enrollment, or what Judge Davidson, our previous judge, called true freedom of choice, that is a constitutional plan in 2016. That is the sum of our appeal, that if you say to a group of American citizens, you may choose whichever school you want to go to, and here's two high schools and here's two junior highs, that is a constitutional concept in 2016. It's a question that the United States Supreme Court has not really taken up in a long time. Freedom of choice plans were not accepted back in the late 60s because they weren't doing much in terms of changing things within school districts. But our argument on appeal will be, this is not 1969 anymore, it's 2016. And a lot of the impediments that were perhaps there in 1969 or in the 60s or 70s simply aren't there anymore. There was a lot of hate still going on, not just in Mississippi, but in other places, and a lot of uncomfortableness. But we believe as a district, true freedom of choice can work in our district. Not just our district, but any district.
I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. Are you saying that there was discrimination in the Cleveland School District at one time?
Well, the Cleveland School District, like many other districts, had what was called a de jure system, which was, unfortunately and tragically, by law, we had a dual school system. And it wasn't just Cleveland, it was every school district across the South and some in the North. So yes, there were absolute problems back in the 60s that rightfully the court system fixed. Many districts are still working through, some of those issues, and obviously we're here today because the Department of Justice thinks we didn't go far enough. But we think that in Cleveland we have a success. We have a success story here, and I'm proud to represent our district in this case. And the board is happy to appeal it because it believes that we haven't done wrong, but we've done something very right here.
What is the board's concern if you do not win the appeal?
If we don't win the appeal, and the appeal could go as far as the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, so it could be a while. But if we don't win the appeal, I think the fear for everybody is that we lose community support for our public schools. That in Cleveland we are very, very lucky, and I guess it's luck and buy-in. It's not just luck. It's the community is behind, by and large, our public school system. We have a couple of private schools, but they've happily coexisted together in Cleveland for some time now. One has not, taken over the other like some communities have. So I guess the worst nightmare or the fear of the school district is that we lose community support, and that means not just the term white flight that everybody likes to use, but we have black students that aren't participating, Hispanic students. We don't have people moving into our community because they look at our school district and say, "It's not something I want to be a part of." There's no question that public schools play a huge role in where people want to live and make their lives, and where industry comes in. And we've had the benefit in Cleveland of having that be a plus in our column. And we think it's because of the system we've set up that many in the media have critiqued. But again, we'd say, look around. We think we've done something right.
Does the board believe that the Cleveland School District is getting a bad rap? How can anyone be against desegregation? I mean, we're in 2016 now.
The board does believe that the district has gotten a bad rap. I think that, unfortunately, the headline has been Cleveland School District ordered to desegregate, when the board's position would be, we are desegregated. What about our district is segregated when you have a system of choice? I would encourage you to talk to a lot of the students on the east side of town and the west side of town and ask them why they choose their school. My guess is you will get 100 different reasons, from I like the football coach better here to the band is better at Eastside or Cleveland High, or whatever. People choose schools for all kinds of reasons. We have smaller schools on the east side, down to about 350 students at Eastside and about 250 at DM Smith. And so many black students choose already to go to Cleveland High. And if every black student at Eastside High walked into Cleveland High tomorrow, school just started, I think, today, but if they came tomorrow and said, hey, we want to sign up, the district would say, okay, we'll figure it out. We have never turned a student away that wanted to come and do a transfer to either school.
I was reading some statistics, and I wanted to get you to confirm them for me.
Okay.
On paper, it would appear that the predominantly black high school, Eastside, is academically stronger than the traditional but now balanced racially high school, Cleveland High School. Am I reading those right?
You've read those statistics correctly, yes. Eastside High has improved markedly in the last 3 to 4 years. There is a new principal at Eastside High, Dr. Randy Grierson, who's done an amazing job and really focused on improving test scores on ACT prep, and has raised the school, I believe, to a B level is the last level that I'm aware of. I need to check my statistics too to make sure I'm not telling you the wrong one, excuse me. Cleveland High does a good job, there's no question, but yes, if you compare the two academically, Eastside scores better. Eastside also has the benefit of an international baccalaureate program in-house, which is a very high level, like an AP type system of courses, but that is housed at Eastside rather than Cleveland High. Now, pursuant to the court order that we had in place in '89, Cleveland High students were allowed to come over and take classes with Eastside students, but the program itself is at Eastside High. And vice versa, by the way, Eastside High students were allowed to go to Cleveland High and take certain classes during the day. And that has been happening since 1989.
Is this town still racially divided by the railroad tracks that run right through it?
Well, the railroad tracks, I would encourage you to look tonight and see what's going on in the railroad track, the old railroad tracks. The railroad tracks are now a community walking trail, which is right outside our office and enjoyed by everyone in town, black, white. It's filled, especially in the morning. Now it's a little hot in the evening, but in the mornings you'll see a lot of different people of all walks of life using the trail. Is our town still racially divided? I think that there are, like there are in many towns, not a perfect melting pot in every facet of life. You'll still go to churches, for example, that are all black or just have a few, sprinkling of white persons that go there. And same is true for white churches. But grocery stores, and I wish we had a movie theater, but we don't anymore. Movie theater, there are some social aspects that I think we have made great strides in. So are we perfect in Cleveland? No, probably not. Could we do better? Sure, but I think we're making a lot of strides in terms of doing more together, as a just one big community.
I'm sure you're on the inside of a lot of conversations with the board as it pertains to how people feel about it, whether they're white or black. What kind of reaction are you getting from the board members to the ruling, as well as parents and students in the community?
Well, it's just mixed. It's a mixed reaction. A lot of the parents that I've spoken to wonder, why are we being picked on? That's kind of the sentiment of many, that have they seen my child's class? My child is in a 50-50 black-white class. They're in this perfect utopia, as Judge Davidson, our first judge, called it. So there's some frustration and confusion. Many parents just want to know what's going to be the plan with certainty. And that's hard to give them at this moment, given the appeal and what's going on there. In the black community, I think there is frustration. I'm sure you'll find there's some that feel like, why is Eastside going away? Eastside High School, which has this long history and tradition that's all its own, and there's a lot of pride there. There are others in the black community you will find that say, it's just time for one high school. We should just do this. So there is definitely a mixed reaction in the community, I would say, that I've heard.
If Eastside is doing better academically on paper than Cleveland High, then why doesn't Cleveland High go away and those kids move over into Eastside High?
Well, that's something that certainly was discussed amongst the board members when we were trying to come up with different plans. I think part of it is you have already almost, let me do my math, you have the majority of your high school students and junior high students already over at Cleveland High. At Cleveland High, at the time that we came up with the plan, I think had 620 students, 50-50, black, white, attending school there. So rather than tell those 620, now you're going over here, it seemed easier to close the smaller school of just 350 students and move them there. Clearly the interest is greater at Cleveland High. That made a lot of sense. Cleveland High is also on a major thoroughfare. It's on Highway 8, it sits right there. It's on the watch list of historic buildings. I mean, it has a lot going for it. You can also fit, if you wanted to, every high school student between Margaret Green and Cleveland High. So that kind of would have made more sense than putting all of the students at Eastside. And again, that was the Department of Justice's, I think, their thought process.
From what I've read and seen in the news, it seems like there is still a cloud hanging over Cleveland when it comes to this issue. What would you like to see happen? The ultimate outcome here?
Well, personally, as a community member first, and I guess attorney second, as a community member, I would like to see our little community stick together on this, that whatever way it turns out, I mean, this is going to be in the hands of judges down in New Orleans and maybe ultimately in the hands of judges in Washington, D.C. I'd love to see our community say, okay, whatever it is, we're staying in the public school system. We'd all win that way. Even if I lose the argument, we all win as a community. So that would be my hope for our community, my prayer for our community, that we could stick together on this. The frightening thing, I guess, is that many communities start, splintering and falling apart when you have this kind of situation. So, you okay?
Excuse me.
It's okay. It's okay.
I apologize.
No, I was rambling anyway.
Oh, please go ahead.
No. I was going to say the frightening thing is that many communities, when you have these mandatory reassignment plans come their way, they do start splintering. And I would hope that Cleveland could be different, and we could just all stay together on this and ride it out and say, all right, at the end of the day, we have, whatever the ruling is, we're all together.
Just one final question I just thought of, and you mentioned it earlier in our conversation. Do you think if there is any restructuring of the school district on those levels, that you will see white families take their children out of the public school system and send them to a private school?
Well, we've already seen it a little bit. Just in the last year, we looked at statistics from the 2015 beginning to end, and we lost 85 white students, which, when you only have just over 1,000, it was, I think, a 7.5% loss of white students.
And what level?
That's as a district. That's district-wide.
District-wide.
So district-wide, we have just over 1,000 white students. So in the time from which we basically ended the trial until we checked again the numbers at the end of the year, we lost 85, which is a 7.5% drop. And that's significant. That's not normal. Normally, you see like a 1 to 2% gain or loss every year, just happens. So, yes, I mean, that is what's frightening. We hope this year we'll see the numbers. We've had enrollment. There hasn't been anything major reported to me in terms of enrollment, so I hope that our families are now, we've had a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but maybe our families are sticking with us. And there's been a lot of, I think, on social media, different schools are kind of giving themselves shout outs, and showcasing their teachers and their accomplishments. And we've got to do that, because otherwise everyone else creates the narrative about Cleveland and we don't. And there's so many good things going on in our public school system. So while we've seen a little bit of flight from white families, we would hope it's contained, but that is the fear.
Are you seeing the same numbers with black families?
I would have to get you the statistics. I just looked at the white families, but there was we got a report recently showing the overall student loss, so I could give you that number to show you what the white versus black was.
Jamie, thank you for being with us today on the program. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for allowing me to talk to you about this.